Hi all, welcome back to PRL Knowledge Center. Now in this session, as part of exception handling, right, how we are going to throw exceptions, okay, using, right, throw keyword, okay. So to throw an exception, we are going to use exception handling, right? That way it is going to, handle all exceptions. Understood? So let me show you that. So an exception can be erased, right? Then exception can be erased or raised manually by using the throw keyword, right? So any type of exceptions, right, which is derived from exception class, can be raised using the throw keyword. Okay. So an exception can be raised manually by using an exception can be raised manually by using throw keyword. Throw keyword. Okay. So any type of exceptions which is derived from exception class derived from exception class can be raised using the throw keyword. Okay. For example, I'm going back to my class here. So whatever class I have right now in my Visual Studio, so I have this class. Okay. So inside of this class, I'm going to create some instance. Okay. So with that instance, right, I'm going to access my method. That's fine. Up to here, everything is fine. Now what I'm going to do is, right, I'm going to, right, uh, here I'm going to declare a class called student. So I'm going to declare a class called here student, right? So that my student class is going to have some attributes and functions. Let me try this class student, right? Instead of this, so I have, right, int user ID. Let me see this. And then I have a method, right? Public y, right? Display user, right? This basically going to take, right, student object, and with that I'm going to print console dot write line of student dot user id. This is what my logic. Okay, so to get access this, we have to create instance to this class, right? Understood? So I'm going to create a class object here in my main method, right? Right. So student, right? This time I'll just declare this variable. I'm not going to create an instance here. Understood? Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, right, pass this object to here in this particular function. Is this possible? Not possible, right? So let me define the same here, right, in my one of the method inside of here itself. Public, right, y display user, right? I'm going to pass this to this method, right, of inside of my obj, right? Or I think I can directly call this. I can define this as a static and I can directly call this, right? I'm going to define this as a static, right? Then I'm going to call this display, right, user of std. Understood? What is that? Display user. When I call this, right, it is throwing use of unassigned variable. Oh, super. Let me assign this as null. And then I'm going to pass this my function. When it is coming here, definitely it will throw you exception. So for this, I'm going to check if student equal to null, right? Throw new, right? What is that exception? Null reference exception I'm going to do. null reference exception, right? Student object is null. I'm going to throw this exception. Otherwise, right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to print my student ID. Got it? Okay. So now let me try this and see what is happening. So I'm running this, I'm passing this, whether it is, so now it is a null, it is throwing exception and it is coming here and it is coming here and then it is going to print my exception saying that student object is null. This is how I'm going to throw, right, specific system exception message to my calling area. Okay, this way we are going to throw exception to the calling area using throw keyword. Understood? Okay. Now we'll see creating of, right, creating of user defined exceptions. How to create, right, user defined exceptions. So you can also create, right, own exceptions, right, that is user defined exceptions. Okay, so user defined exception classes are, right, user defined exception classes are derived from the exception class. So when you are going to create user defined exception class, you have to, use the exception class as part of inheritance. That's where it is going to inherit all your classes. Class, right? I'm going to write something, right? Let me tell temp is 0, right? Exception, right? This is my class. I'm closing here. So as I said, right, you need to inherit these two, right, from the exception class. This is the main base class. You have to import it from, inherit from main exception class. So under this, right, you are going to write a constructor anyway, right? Public temp is 0 exception, right? This is my constructor, right? For this, I'm expecting a parameter. Okay, so and after this, I'm going to pass this message to my parent, right, class here exception. So whatever message I'm passing it here, that message I'm automatically passing to my main exception class, right? This is how we are going to pass the our child class variables to parent class using a base keyword. Understood? Now here, right, I'm going to define, right, my class, another class, public class, some let me tell student ID. Is it okay? Let me define class student, right? Here I'm going to define public int student ID, right? By default I'm assigning 0. Okay, and then I'm going to define public void, right? Show student. I'm going to display student information. Okay, sorry. Now inside of his, okay, I'm going to check that whether, right, this dot if of this dot student ID, right, equal 0, right, I'm going to return throw, right, new of temp is 0, right, exception of, here I'm going to say, right, 0 exception, right, or 0 like a student found, like student ID found, student ID found with 0, right? Otherwise in the else part I'm going to print the student ID console dot right line of, right, student ID is, right, this student ID. Understood? Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to invoke this in my main class. So looking at here, this is my exception class I have created, and this is my another class basically, which is going to operate as normally creating an instance and assigning values and doing the normal operations. So inside of this, if you get any problem, you're throwing to this particular class with some message, and this message is going to pass it to the parent class, that is here exception. Understood? I think let's try in Visual Studio for better understanding. I'll keep this idea as same. Public, right? Void display student, right? And inside of this, I'm going to check if this is something like display student. So I'm going to take SID, student ID, SID, right? Int SID should use some naming standard. Equal to 0, right? By default, I'm giving 0. Equal to 0, right? I'm going to throw new, right? So we have to define a class, right? Let me come back here. First, we'll define a class here. Public class temp is 0, right? Exception, which is basically derived from exception class. Inside of this, I'm going to, pass the parameter to the base class, right? Here I'm closing my curly braces, and inside of this, I'm expecting some message to be passed here. And here, throw new, right? Temp is exception of, right? Student ID font 0, and else, right? Console dot right line of, right? Int SID. This is my class. Now in coming to my main here, right, wherever I'm calling it, right, instead of this, I'm going to create a class object for the student equal to student. Okay, what happened? Student, display student, that use new keyword, and then obj dot, right? When I say display student, right, it definitely throw you exception. Let me check that. We'll comment this stuff for a couple of minutes. Let me run this. Again, a problem. Int SID. It's okay. Now it is coming here and going to my student, right? This is 0, hence it is throwing an exception, right? And throwing student ID font 0, and that is going to print and the console. Looking at here, student ID font a 0, right? This is my exception class. Understood? This is not given by our system or an application exception blocks. This is created by us, and this name is coming up here as part of showing an exception, right? This way you can create your own exception, right? Using exception parent class. That means you have to create an exception class by deriving from exception parent, and your message needs to be passed to the parent class using base keyword. Okay, and now it is going to throw you exception to the base class. With that base class help, you are going to just showcase the customized or user defined exception. Okay, I hope you understood like how we are going to create custom exceptions using exception based class. Okay, thanks for listening to this video, and please subscribe this channel for more videos. Thank you.